Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one's entitled Planet X Multiple Core Systems Coming In. Now, Planet X system stellar cores have been coming into the solar system for a very long time and come in as comets. The largest of these objects go to the sun, and some are larger than the sun. The smaller ones seem to end up coming to Earth. The larger ones are likely to be star cores, and the smaller ones to be planetary cores. The largest of the objects going to the sun seem to induce CMEs, or coronal mass ejections, which are matter creation events by the sun's core, which then hurls plasma at the stellar core which induced it. And you can see that happening in these images here. These are all cases where we have CMEs going on as a result of these objects, the stellar cores, the Planet X system stellar cores being very close to the sun. So they induce these CMEs, which are really plasma ejections or matter creation events. You can see how this one goes out from the sun. It curves around and ends up on the object. So, and you may look at Article 501 entitled Planet X Induced Volcanic Eruptions, or like an Earth CME, and Article 676, Earthquake in Hawaii, points to possible extreme volcanic activity, for more details on this. Now, the stellar cores which end up coming to Earth must be a lot smaller, as they come inside the Earth's atmosphere and must thus be much smaller than the Earth, suggesting that there is a very wide variation in stellar core size. Since the Earth also experiences volcanic eruptions, which are the same as CMEs, it is likely that some larger objects also come to the Earth and induce these. And you may look at Article 501 for details. Now, these larger stellar cores are likely to be of the right proportionate size to the Earth that the ones which induce plasma ejections from the sun are. Thus, at least as large as the Earth's core or larger, and some may be larger than the Earth. And then there are smaller stellar cores which go to the sun and produce physical connections with the sun, solar tornado type connections which seem to be made of their cloud envelopes. I initially thought that these cloud envelopes were made of water clouds, but it has become apparent that they are actually volcanic gases, the type which come from inside a volcano on Earth during a volcanic eruption. And you may look at Article 706 entitled Clouds or Planet X Volcanic Gases for more details. And here you can see some of these smaller stellar cores, solar tornado stellar cores. They produce these tornado type connections with the sun's surface. And these objects, it's actually the same object here, but these types of objects, or at least this one, and I've seen others that are about the same size, are about half the radius of Jupiter. And that means that they're about a quarter of the size of the sun's core. So we would expect the tornado-forming stellar cores on Earth to be about a quarter of the size of the Earth's core, because they would be proportionate size to the Earth's core for the ones that come to Earth. And the Earth's core is 1,200 kilometers in radius, so 2,400 kilometers in diameter. And a quarter of that would be about 600 kilometers in diameter. And that's about 370, something like 360 miles at least. In terms of miles. So the solar tornado stellar cores are about half the radius of Jupiter. And since, as I said, Jupiter is about half the size of the sun's core, this would mean about a quarter of the size of the Earth's core. And that turns out to be about 600 kilometers. But there are most likely smaller ones that go to the sun and produce the same type of connection. So perhaps this is an upper limit, and we may get smaller stellar cores coming to the Earth and producing these type of tornado connections. And on Earth, I like to call them weather stellar cores, because the connection they produce is not always recognized as a tornado type of connection. But these will come, all of them come, make a physical connection out of the cloud envelope with the Earth's surface, which then allows them to have plasma ejections and create gaseous material and water. That's how they produce rain. And here you see one of them doing just that. This would be the outer cloud envelope. The stellar core would be inside here. This is part of its inner envelope, and it comes down towards the surface. It makes a physical connection with the surface, and then soon after that you often see lightning within the cloud. That's the start of the matter creation events, the plasma ejections. The object then creates gas, and it creates water, liquid water, and the liquid water falls down in this area it's the area of gravitational interference between the stellar core and the surface of the Earth. And this is then where rain comes from. And here you can see one of the objects. Here you can actually see the surface of the object. You can see that it's a spherical object, and it's dark, and it has a solid surface. It seems to most likely be losing most of its cloud envelope. They do seem to lose it eventually. Or perhaps there is a lot more here below. This is just the top part. Hurricanes seem to be a system of these smaller stellar cores. These physical connections drop out of the outer cloud envelope at different times, thus causing the appearance of tornado spouts at different times, and also explains why the destructive effects they have through their gravitational effects in the region of gravitational interference, which is the same as where the tornado spout will be seen to drop to the surface, can miss certain houses when those all around are completely destroyed. And this is illustrated by this diagram of a cyclone or hurricane system, which is made up of a system of stellar cores, most likely a larger one surrounded by satellites. Each makes its connection with the ground at different times, and each creates its own water. And that's represented by the blue circles here. The whole system would be enveloped in thick clouds so that the objects would not be seen. The greater the number of objects in the system, the larger the cyclone, and the more rain will fall, because they will all each create their own rain. The stellar core's gravitational effects will be felt in the region of gravitational interference, and that's represented by these cylindrical regions here. And so some have, what we can see here is some have made contact with the surface already, and that's this one, that one, and are starting to create water. Some are in the process of lowering their cloud envelope to make contact, these two, and some have not yet made contact. So those two have not yet made contact, so they will do it at a later date. So if this was a cyclone moving over land, you will then see the tornado spouts possibly dropping from these smaller ones as it moves further inland. And you may look at Article 704 entitled Cyclones or Gravitational Effects Created by Space Objects. And here you can see the damage to Panama City Beach, where Hurricane Michael made landfall. And we see the same pattern as in Beira, the port town in Mozambique, which was recently affected by a cyclone and was devastated. And you can see buildings razed to the ground. This building here was destroyed. Buildings all around being destroyed. But this building was left untouched. And hurricane strength winds cannot do that. They cannot destroy one building and leave another one untouched next to it, because wind just blows everywhere, doesn't it? And a tidal surge cannot do that, and even torrential rain cannot do that. Only gravitational anomalies created by the gravitational interference regions under a system of weather, stellar cores passing through, can do that. And that's because in the region of gravitational interference, you have rings where gravity is stronger within one ring and it's weaker in another. So as it passes through and affects, say, a certain wall, part of the wall will expand and part of the wall will contract, and that will tear it apart. Or it will move up and down in response to this region of gravitational interference passing through it. This then suggests that Planet X planetary cores are made of systems of cores, with most likely a larger central one surrounded by smaller ones, and suggests that all planetary cores, including the Earth's core, is a system of cores. In other words, a larger one with satellite cores inside the magma, water, and gases, which all the cores combined create within the body of the planet. In this case, the planetary core would start out as one core and creates plasma which solidifies into the outer body and shell of the planet, and then over time it breaks up into a central core with satellite cores tuned into it and doing their own matter creation. It is possible that stars also have multiple cores, but that would then require that stars, like planets, have a solid outer shell in order to remain as a spherical object. However, this would also explain where planets come from, as separate cores would already be in existence inside the body of the star long before it is ejected and becomes a planet outside of the body of that star. This idea agrees with the observation that the center of the galaxy contains multiple galactic cores, all of which are doing their own separate plasma ejections. And this is a radio telescope image of the center of the Milky Way galaxy, covering a region which is 1,000 light years in length, so from here to there, and 500 light years in height, from there to there. And a galactic nucleus will most likely be smaller than 1 light year, which would make it smaller than 1,000th of the region seen in this photograph. We see many circular structures, which are most likely globular star clusters in a formation stage. Long filaments can be seen. These filaments here going upwards, some going downwards there. So these are most likely long ejections of plasma from separate galactic nuclei, suggesting that there isn't one single nucleus, but that several, most likely because the initial nucleus broke up into several galactic nuclei or galactic cores. So each one of these would be doing its own matter creation and thus giving birth to globular clusters, which will then go on to populate the galaxy. And so these are cores, or galactic cores, and they're all doing their own matter creation here. So the single one that this galaxy started out having, and galaxies start out as quasars, broke up into several different ones. And you may look at Article 288 entitled Image of Center of the Milky Way Galaxy Reveals How the Universe Works. So in conclusion, Planet X planetary cores coming to the Earth seem to be made of systems of cores with perhaps a central larger core surrounded by smaller cores. These cores connect with the Earth's surface at different times, thus creating rain in their own turn. The larger the stellar core system is, the larger the amount of rain that will be created at one time. And these are the references. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.